Oh, I apologize. Good afternoon. I am Phyllis Logan, your host for the Chicago Westside branch NAACP. We are a live interactive talk show. You can call in. Feel free to call in with your questions or comments, 312-738-1060. We have a guest this evening that is going to help me with this conversation on a very important topic that's involving our community. So we're going to introduce Melvin. Melvin, let's chime you in and then give me a couple of seconds here to bring you back into the conversation, okay?
Okay.
Okay, very good. So the Chicago Westside branch NAACP for the last 3 to 5 years has been working on opportunities to create equality as well as wealth and dismantle the disparities within many of our West Side communities. Community benefits agreements are one way of doing that, and we know that it happens a lot. It takes the community as well as our elected officials to join forces and then to bring legislation to City Council, which creates an ordinance that recognizes that this community, this area, this space can't share in the wealth. That's why they call it a community benefits agreement. And with that, two things have happened since we've started working on the NAACP's Chicago West Side, 29th Ward to be particular, community benefits agreement. It was brought to our attention that over in the Garfield Park community, there's been established a community benefits agreement that really speaks to large volumes on the concerns that we have. Communities that are able to participate, the stakeholders, the business owners, the residents are able to participate in these opportunities of being gainfully employed, but also if you're a business owner, having the opportunity to contract out your services to continue on your wealth building as that new entity would do. So in the Garfield Park area, Lake and Kesey to be exact, there's a project called the Hatchery Project. Like I said, two weeks ago, I met with a gentleman, Melvin Cox, and he's on the phone now. And Melvin, thank you for calling in and joining the NAACP, becoming a bona fide member. All of those things are good as well, but being an added voice to what we speak on a regular basis, on a daily basis in regards to equality and wealth building initiatives. So with that, Melvin, tell us about this Hatchery Project.
Well, good evening, and thank you for providing a platform. I applaud the work that you guys are doing on the West Side and throughout Chicago. The Hatchery Project is a 67,000 square foot real estate development which will consist of 10,000 square feet of office space, 57,000 square feet of kitchen incubator space.
So this project, describe what its purpose is before we get into, we know it's being built, but what's its purpose?
So its purpose is for workforce development and provide kitchen space for food business entrepreneurs. If you've got a catering company and you're cooking out of your kitchen and you need a larger kitchen to cook out of, you can rent kitchen space from the hatchery to run your operation.
Okay.
If you have a food truck business,
go ahead.
You can.
Maybe we need to do the echo on that. I jumped in, so repeat that part.
If you have a food truck business and you need kitchen space to operate out of, you can rent kitchen space from the hatchery, back your food truck up to the loading dock, load up your food trucks if you've got a fleet of 3 or 4 or 5 or however many, and you can go out throughout the city and run your food truck business.
So let's describe an average food truck. Describe what that looks like for those that don't know what food trucks are.
Oh, what food trucks are? So it's I guess you'd say, an old school ice cream truck that used to come around the neighborhood, and except now they're serving hot food. A lot of times with Street Fest or downtown in the Loop, you'll see food trucks that are lined up for lunch or sometimes for breakfast.
I'm just curious, have you seen any food trucks in the inner city?
In the Loop,
In the inner city, Chicago, the West Side?
on the west side,
Yes.
not as many. During the summer, you'll find a few around the parks, but not a lot.
Okay. So if there's if a person owns a food truck, just like an ice cream truck, they can participate in the hatchery facility, go and cook their meals or prepare their meals, load their truck, and then go out into the communities to sell their products, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what's going on with the Hatchery Project?
So there's a community benefits agreement with the Hatchery Project. Where do you want to start at as far as?
Well, let's start at where we are today, and then we can work backwards.
So today they've started construction, and I don't work or represent the hatchery at all. I want to be clear on that.
Thank you.
The construction is not complete. Walls are up. There's a portion of the roof that is up, and they're doing work over there as we speak.
Okay.
They're expected to be open by the end of the year.
And
broke
what?
Around in September.
Okay.
Late September, early October.
So audience, we have some concerns with this project because number one, it's inclusive of many neighborhoods, at least 4 community neighborhoods that are mapped by the city of Chicago, from Garfield Park to Lawndale, and then to Humboldt Park, and then into Austin. This project was spearheaded to maybe circumvent some energy as far as employment opportunities, connecting to the workforce development, bringing people from within that 4 corridor community into this facility or near this facility to learn the trade of maybe cooking or preparing food or some other labor intensive part to be gainfully employed, learn the train, and then learn the operations, and then go on to work for someone who's a food truck owner or operator. So I think what has happened, and Mr. Cox, I know you have a forum coming up tomorrow, a public forum or town hall meeting coming up tomorrow, but through the process of putting this hatchery project together, you as a community stakeholder as well as an advocate for fair and equitable civil rights, what role have you played in this?
Asking a lot of questions. And just asking questions, starting off on the front end, it's a $35 million project, and it's using a little over $7 million in TIF funds. It's about $3 million in new money market tax credits. So just asking questions around, obviously the city and the state and our taxpayer dollars are behind this. Mm-hmm. How are we benefiting in the construction portion of it? Okay. Let's just start there.
And the portion of the construction would be not only laborers, but also contract owners or subcontracting ownership?
Subcontracting.
Okay, go ahead.
Subcontracting jobs. Okay. Here on the west side, the corner of Lake and Kedzie, a large $35 million project is awesome for the community.
Right.
It's really awesome if we're getting some of those jobs and if we're getting some of those subcontracting. Right. But if we're not receiving those jobs, if we're not receiving any portion of those subcontracting opportunities, our benefit is delayed until, I guess, the place opens and we get some jobs working in the kitchen. Right. But it starts with the construction piece, because that's $35 million is literally being invested into the community in one sense, mm-hmm. But if no one from the community is working on that job site, if no one in the community is receiving subcontracting opportunities, that $35 million doesn't circulate a single hour in our community. So, audience, feel free to give us a call, even though Mr. Cox is our guest and he's on the phone. You can still call in with your questions or comments, 312-738-1060.
when we talk about community benefits agreements, the conversation really needs to start when the elected official is aware that a project is coming or development is coming to your community. It really needs to start there first to get the community's input into how the community would benefit and whether or not there will be jobs and trainings, a fair opportunity for the community to be stakeholders, not just employed there, because that's going to be a permanent site in your community where you live. And if you're not part of that, then it's like the stranger next door that you never meet, who is doing great, and you never know how they're doing great or how you can participate in their greatness or get your fair share opportunities from it. So we're saying right now, Mr. Cox, that the project started. When was the community made aware before the ground got broke?
And that's where things kind of get gray. It depends who you talk to in the community and how the question is asked. So on one side, from the hatchery side of things, planning started back in 2014-ish, and this was a piece of a larger community plan. So folks from the community around that time who were attending those meetings, they state that they were against it from the beginning. Mm-hmm. I personally, I want to be transparent, I personally purchased a home and moved in the community in 2015. Okay, so that was prior to me. But as I'm talking to everyone, asking questions, this is the information I start gathering and hearing.
So when you moved into the community, you were not aware of that project?
Not at all.
Okay, so let's tell the audience who makes up the Hatchery Project. Who are these entities or persons that make up this Hatchery Project?
You have 3 nonprofits that have come together as the real estate developers. 1, Kinsey Industrial Development Corporation. 2, Axion. 3, the Hatchery.
Okay. And these 3 components here, these 3 entities, are the ones that this is their brick and mortar, and they're also bringing this new industry onto the west side at Kedzie and Lake Street, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So you being new there in 2015, not being aware of this, what made you aware of this?
When they broke ground.
Okay, when they broke ground.
So when they broke ground in September, it definitely became aware. But prior to that, though, I've taken place in a few different community meetings. I'm on the board of directors of Garfield Park Conservatory Alliance.
Okay.
So that board position there helped me create a network, and I'm just getting into the know of what's going on with different things and different developments. And I was asked to join a community meeting regarding some development at the Kedzie Green Line stop and the Kedzie Blue Line stop. And the Hatchery Project came up during that meeting. And I'd say this was 2016-ish. So from there, you start getting some stories about what they're thinking about doing and what may be coming. The conversations that I was involved in were around this may be coming. That those were just the conversation I was around. And at the same time, I want to circle back where the community members who have been longtime residents of the West Side, I'm talking 2nd and 3rd generation, they had already met, assembled as a community and decided that that particular site was going to have market rate single family homes.
Okay.
And the development was going to be East Garfield Square.
East Garfield Square.
They had aligned a developer, and they were in the planning process, working with the city to get the proper zoning.
So who's the alderman of this specific area?
Currently today is Walter Burnett.
Currently
And
today?
yeah, currently today it's Walter Burnett. Well, I mean, at that point in time, when they were doing the East, see, you're going to get me in trouble. When they were first playing the East Garfield Square, I'm not sure if Burnett was the alderman then or not. And I know they've done some rezoning of lines over here. So
Okay.
on Kedzie, where this is at, Kedzie and Lake, is interesting because the east side of Kedzie is the 27th ward, which is Burnett.
Right.
The west side of Kedzie is the 28th ward, which is Urban.
Okay, Jason Irving. So we have, the west side, especially the Garfield Park area, has seen a lot of change in the last 10, 15 years. Since the conservatory gained more attention, was receiving visitors from out of state as well as visitors from other parts of Chicago who were near this conservatory as opposed to going downtown or to further places. And then the Central Park train station was also developed, and the Homan stop was taken away. The Kedzie stop still exists or not?
Yes.
Okay, so you got a Kedzie stop, and this is great access for transportation to work, from work to home if you live in Chicago. But a lot of changes are taking place in the Garfield Park community. I think when I read the Hatchery Project scenario, the paperwork, I was a little stunned that it included the other three communities when this project only sits in one community, Garfield Park. Were you surprised to hear that the other three areas were inclusive in this project?
I was surprised, and that's one of the main things that jumped out to me early on when I came across the community benefits agreement. Mm-hmm. So this community benefits agreement is buried in the 122-page city redevelopment agreement, and that's an agreement that the city has with the developers. It's a 122-page document, mm-hmm. and the community benefits agreement are 3 pages within that 122 pages.
So the city did their due diligence in making it a legal document and went from 3 pages to 122 pages. But what are some of the benefits, though, that the community will get from the Hatchery Project?
So, real quick, I want to address one thing. I don't think that the city intended I don't think the spirit was about a community benefits agreement. I think it was inserted in there.
Okay.
And I'm sure there were some reasons for it. I don't know who was involved in creating it. But the good thing about it is that it defines the community. Mm-hmm. And it defines the community as being Garfield Park, West Humboldt Park, North Mondale, and Austin. Which, the reason why I say that's a good thing, here on the west side, finding a common goal and a common thread that incorporates the broader west side is a good thing. The divide and conquer, or keeping people separated, whether it be intentional or unintentional, and whether it be self-induced by the community or outside influences, it doesn't matter. But anytime there's opportunity for the broader west side to be connected, I think that's a good thing. And that's the one good thing about the community benefits agreement.
Okay, so now, we're going to do, hold that thought. We're going to do our due diligence here. We have to recognize who we are. I am Phyllis Logan with the Chicago Westside branch, NAACP. We're located at 5820 West Chicago Avenue. Our phone number, 773-261-5890. And as always, we have a general membership meeting the first Saturday of every month at our office location at 1 p.m. We are open to the public, and the NAACP is always welcoming individuals to join us because membership is power. So our focus today is on community benefits agreements, but the one project that is in front of us now is the Hatchery Project. What's going on this weekend, Mr. Cox? What's going on?
So this weekend we're having a community meeting at Marshall High School from 9 to 1. And during this meeting, we're going to be talking about a few various things that are happening on the west side. The hatchery is a project that we're going to be doing a deep dive into, and we've invited all of the partner organizations that are part of the hatchery to come out and participate in this platform to give an update to the broader community.
Very good.
We also have NAACP is going to be doing a presentation and update about the community benefits agreement work that we are doing and that you're leading.
Mm-hmm.
The Boys and Girls Club will be coming out to give an update. There's the Martin Luther King Jr. Boys and Girls Club at the corner of Washington and Sacramento. They shut it down last year.
Right.
And so there was a bunch of questions about who, what, where, when, why, and we're just looking to get an update from them on that. And I believe it's expected to be reopened here in 2019.
Okay.
And we've also got our friends at Dearborn Realists who are doing a panel about the work that they're doing on the west side and their campaign for 2 million new homeowners.
In 5 years.
So, correct.
2 million in 5 years. And we're going to give a shout out to the Dearborn. We're going to give a shout out to the Dearborn Realtists in a second. It's the oldest real estate association in the area of real estate that exists. So they're not as old as the NAACP, but they have been fighting for democracy and housing for over 70-some years. I think it's 83, but don't quote me on that. So we appreciate that. So give us that time again.
From 9 to 1 at Marshall High School.
Okay. And Marshall's at Kedzie and Monroe?
No, Adams.
Adams and Monroe.
3250 West Adams.
Okay, so we invite you, the community, out to be a part of this dialogue, be a part of this conversation. Come out and get some information to see how you can be better served by community benefits agreements that come into our community. So, Mr. Cox, I thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you for having me.
And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, this week marked the 40th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act, and it relates directly to community benefits agreements. 50 years ago, there was an appeal for a national role in curing the economic ailments was made by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Of course, 50 years ago, last week, April 4th, was the anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. But at this time, 40 years after his death, the U.S. Senate had a hearing on the federal role in urban affairs. At the hearing, Dr. King called for a rebalancing of the nation's priority and stated, his quotes, "The sorry record of income, public service, and education indicates that we are not doing enough," meaning the United States. "A major reason for our failures is that we aim too low." This 40 years ago. Our goal is not to bring the discriminated up to a limited particular level, but to reduce the gap between them and the rest of the American society. Last week I talked about the census counting and how all of these things matter and they all connect to each other. We have to be counted. We have to demand more of our government as far as appropriating federal dollars into our communities, but we also have to hold our local elected officials accountable to making sure that there's an equitable disbursement of the resources and that we all share in the wealth. So tomorrow's forum at 1 p.m. is truly necessary for those that live within those 4 community corridors, Garfield Park, Lawndale, all of Lawndale. There's a north and a south, but all of Lawndale, since they're claiming Lawndale, Humboldt Park, as well as the Austin community. We have questions that we want to ask of the Hatchery Project, but our questions are to the elected officials, since many of them through the course of this past 2 weeks have stated to us that they had no knowledge of this development coming through. The issues that we have with the Hatchery Project as it relates to equality within our neighborhoods and to help revitalize our communities, make us whole again from the 2008 financial crisis, is to say to the elected officials, we need to have a seat at the table when all of this planning is being done so that we can make sure that things that affect us are also written and descripted in the writings that they finalize to be ordinances in reference to the city of Chicago. City of Chicago is providing over $7 million in TIF dollars toward this project. This project has to speak to the community first. Those are the stakeholders, people that live next door, down the street, across the street, within so many mile radius of whatever this 27 ward corridors are. That's the community in the Garfield Park area. So those persons should have first right of refusal to be employed or to gain contracts to do business out of the resources that are within that site. So the Hatchery Project, sitting on the corner of Kedzie and Lake Street, is part of the Kinsey Industrial Corridor, which covers all of the industrial area along Lake Street, which is why they possibly inserted the other communities, Humboldt Park, as well as the Austin community. We have an industrial corridor covering Lake Street and then going up north to Grand Avenue, as well as going south of the Eisenhower. Once you get past 21st, 22nd, you go into another industrial corridor. This project is stating that we want to be here at Kedzie and Lake Street, but we also want to expand our wings throughout the west side of Chicago. Now, Mr. Cox stated that that was a good thing. It possibly is a good thing, but the truth is in the pudding, okay? So in writing, it does not state very well in this ordinance how residents will prevail. It states how this project will enhance opportunities for other people. We want this ordinance to be restrictive to community first and opportunities for others later. How do we make that happen? Number one, there is training. So if you have no knowledge of how to run and operate a food truck, there should be training for you to be an entrepreneur in this field. If you have no knowledge of how to cook on a truck, then this venue at Kedzie and Lake Street is offering you an opportunity to prepare your meals and then load them on your truck and then travel throughout the city, if this is a city limit project, so that you can sell your product. So you should not be excluded from these opportunities. That's a conversation we want to have tomorrow at this town hall meeting, and we invite you. So once again, I am Phyllis Logan, your host for the Chicago Westside Branch NAACP. Next week, we will have another conversation and maybe give you updates on how tomorrow's town hall meeting went and what were some of the solutions that came out of the conversation. So once again, we're here Fridays at 7 p.m. right here on CAN TV channel 21. So thank you again and have a good evening.